Good morning. Thanks again for listening. This is Mark Morris with Word of Faith Fellowship, and we have been sharing with you the wonderful things that God has been doing in our lives. We've also been giving you a lot of information and truth about our church, and we've been covering some of these allegations that you may have heard against our church. And so today I want to start off the program with covering what is an A&E program or series that's going to run. You may have heard about it. It is described by the A&E as a series about the ex-members of the Word of Faith Fellowship, and it talks about our church purportedly. So what I wanted to do is just briefly cover this. This series is supposed to air tonight, and we want to share with you tomorrow night, and we want to share with you just briefly the truth about what's really going on. So the producer of this series, who is actually not employed by A&E, he is just a freelance producer, came to some members of our church and told us about this series that he was doing. When he came, and we actually did meet with him, Josh and I met with him. Josh is here with me today, and he is my law partner. He's also the attorney for the Word of Faith Fellowship, and we met along with our pastor with this producer. Now, what you need to know is that when we met with him, he had already spent huge amounts of time with this group of people that have left our church, and he had already developed and locked in this theme against our church, that our church was this church that was a cult, and so he had already developed this long before he ever met with us, long before he ever really met with any person that is actually in the church who can tell him really how the Word of Faith Fellowship is going. Who did he meet with? Who did he spend hours and hours and hours with? He spent hours with these people, this group of people that we have already talked to you about on this radio program for many, many programs. It's this group of people. They've banded together. We've talked about this conspiracy against our church, and it's predominantly with some members of a very large family, the Cooper family that was part of our church. They left our church, and they've really banded together. Some of them have, and so that is a significant part of this series, along with this other group that is banded with them. And you've already heard these names. You've already heard the Cooper family. You've already heard some of these other names. Why? Because they've already run to other media outlets. They've already run to the AP. They've run to the news. So you have this same group, and they've run here and they've run there, and they've tried to tell their story this way, and now here they are again. They're coming to A&E, and so it's the same group, and you hear the same allegations, and it's amazing what we're seeing as a church, because we're seeing all of these this group running here and there, and all of these media stories, and trying to gather all these headlines, and in the midst of it all, as what we're seeing as a church is how much we just keep getting stronger. We just keep growing in God. We keep our heart locked into God, and we just think about all the wonderful things that Jesus has done in our life. We keep serving Him with all our hearts. And so it's been, for us, it's been an amazing thing to see how God in the midst of this just keeps protecting us and keeps blessing us. And so we see clearly what's happening in our church, and we want you to see as well. Clearly, the devil has not liked what is going on in our church. And we've explained in past radio programs that the devil will always want to stop what God is doing. And in our radio programs, we have actually had now over 170 members of our church on these programs sharing with you about what God has done in our lives. We've had testimonies from all over the planet, people coming to right here in Rutherford County, sharing how God has delivered them from all sorts of things, anything ranging from substance abuse to suicidal thoughts to child abuse that was horrendous to just falling apart lives. And you've heard miracles of what God has done. God's brought these people right here to Word of Faith Fellowship, and God has healed and restored, and the devil doesn't like that. The devil wants to stop people from doing that. So what you've had is there has been a group of people that left our church. It's disgruntled former church members. They've banded together and they didn't like the message that was in our church, which is the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it's preached in our church every day. It's preached very straightforward. It's preached the truth. We don't hide the truth from our church. We preach the message of Jesus Christ. And there are people that don't like that. And so what you have is a group that has left, and they're saying these things and running around. And so this A&E series that is about to air, when we met with the producer, he had already developed his theme. And one of the questions that we asked him was, if you were going to do a program about the Word of Faith Fellowship, why did you not come to the Word of Faith Fellowship?
Because, Mark, I guess what we found out in that program is that he had already been shooting this for months. So essentially, as Mark is saying, he'd already had his material, he had his storyline, he had his angle, he had his cast of ex-Word of Faith or anti-Word of Faith ex-members. And so essentially at the end of all that, he says, well, he comes to the Word of Faith and he says, we want to tell your side too. Why don't you give us interviews and we'll tell your side of the story? And that prompted this meeting that we had. Okay.
And that is where we want to address today and talk to you a little bit about what is going on here, because when you go to the A&E website, you actually see a very short description of they're calling this the devil next door. I don't know what that means or why they're bringing that title there, but it says that the devil next door takes a look at Spindale, North Carolina. It appears to be an average American town, but hidden inside lies a church that is steeped in scandal. The Word of Faith Fellowship, led by Jane Whaley, proclaims to be a devout Christian church, but former members tell a different story, one of violence and exploitation. It's the mission of these former members to convince those still inside, including their own loved ones and children, to break away from the church. Is Jane's power finally about to come to an end? So does that sound like a fair and balanced description of our church? And our pastor, is Jane's power finally come to an end? Well, that's from A&E. Doesn't sound fair. It describes our church as hidden. Well, we're not hidden. We've shared about this program. We're here in this community. We have businesses here. We do outreaches in all different prisons and nursing homes and so forth, and we interact with the community and have a good relationship with people here. But it is a total slant against the church that fits their narrative, and our pastor really is the target of this, Jane Whaley, and we have covered so much about our pastors on this radio program in the past. We've had, again, over 170 people come and share with you about how it really is at Word of Faith Fellowship. No, our pastor does not control our lives, as it says in this, that she doesn't have some power over us that's going to come to an end. And we've covered this so much that the message here at the Word of Faith Fellowship is simply that Jesus Christ is our Savior, and there is salvation in no one else. And what's preached here is that Jesus wants to live inside of us, and He wants to dwell in us, and He wants to flow through us and help us every single day. And that's salvation. And it's not salvation in man. It's not letting some man tell you what to do. And we've covered that, how our pastors don't tell us what to do every day, and they don't control us, and they don't have this power over us that, as it's described here, it's false. It's false, but that's what you see, and that's the slant, and that's what, as Josh said, when we're meeting with these people, they've already developed the theme against us. And so, Josh, would you talk a little bit about, we did find out some more information about payment being made to these people on this series, Josh.
So, sure. So one of the things, Mark and I were just talking about a meeting that he and I and our pastor, Jane Whaley, and her attorney, Noel Tinn, had with the producers of the A&E show down in Charlotte. And this meeting occurred some months ago, and the producer's name is Francis Gasparini. So one of the things we had heard up until that point was A&E was paying the participants in their documentary. Now, the documentary is supposed to be nonfiction, supposed to be a form of journalism, supposed to be here to present the truth. But what we're finding out is the significant cast members of this television series were paid. Now, if they've got financial motivation driving them to participate in this, I think it's fair to assume that that very well may color some of the things that they're saying on this A&E documentary. I mean, for example, if they didn't have anything salacious and outlandish to say about the Word of Faith, A&E may just well move on and not pay them for their time. But the reality is, it's a sad state of consumers of American media today. What people want to hear are these salacious stories, these outlandish and crazy stories about various things, including about people's religion. So we confronted Francis Gasparini with this allegation, and at the time it was just an allegation. We'd had an unconfirmed rumor that he'd been paying some of the participants on his show, and the response was, well, no. We have just given some of these people a little bit of money for expenses. You know, we've got to cover some of these folks' expenses, but no, we did not pay these people. So that's where it was left in the meeting that we had, and they continued to shoot their show. I guess to kind of close off the part of that meeting, we left that meeting, and basically after praying about it, our pastor Jane Whaley and Mark and I prayed about it, and we told A&E, no, we're not going to participate in your show, because we got the very distinct impression that they wanted to include us to appear to be two-sided about the matter, but as we said, they'd already had the hook or the angle that they were going to run with from the Cooper family and John Huddle. The main six people, Ben and Micah Cooper, Chad Cooper, Sarah Anderson, who's a cousin to the Coopers, John Huddle, and Jamie Anderson. So we move forward a little bit later in time, and now we've got some hard evidence that the participants in the show were paid. And so we put out a press release on Friday, and I want to talk about some of the things that came out in this press release, because I went down to the Daily Courier and I gave this info to the Daily Courier, and for some of the very few people in Rutherford County that read the Daily Courier, they may have seen some of the comments that Mackenzie Wicker put in her article yesterday, but she put very little info out of the press release that we gave her in there. Mackenzie was not impressed with the information that we gave, and her response was, well, it doesn't surprise me people are paid in documentaries. Surely they need to get paid for their time. But she missed the broader point, is that this is purported to be a non-fiction documentary series. And she ignored the fact that a number of these people were paid thousands of dollars. So here's what we know. We know that Chad Cooper, one of the main people in the series, he got a check for $3,300, $3,335 in February of 2018 from the A&E producers. He got another, and I have a copy of that check. And for those who actually didn't bring that copy with me, so I have a copy of the check. For those who are watching on the YouTube live stream, we've got a check from Fly Girls LLC, which is a LLC that's related to the A&E producers, Collins Avenue. They actually have another program called Fly Girls. And so this is one of their companies to Chad Cooper, February 6, 2018, in the amount of $3,335. So then Chad's ex-wife, Lauren Cooper, Calder now, saw a check to Chad the next month for several $1,000s. Chad has been telling Lauren and others that he's been getting paid all along from his, quote, side job, referring to filming with the A&E series. So he considers this his job. Chad recently purchased a car, at least in part, with proceeds from this job. And Chad actually told another source that I spoke with I've got more money in my bank account at the time of this statement than I've ever had before. Now, Chad's actually a licensed attorney, among other things, and yet it's the pinnacle of his financial success is related to participating in this A&E show. So, to me, that is very telling. We're not talking about small bits of money for expenses. You know, I can understand reimbursing somebody for a few meals or for some mileage on their car or for, maybe they had to hire a babysitter for an afternoon. But we're now, at least in the case of Chad Cooper, talking about multi-$1,000 payments occurring over a period of time. Now, we also know that John Huddle got paid. We don't know how much he got paid. We were told that Benjamin and Micah Cooper got paid a significant sum. We don't know how much. But it's fair to say, it's fair to say if Chad Cooper got this kind of money, that I would suspect that a number of these other folks got similar amounts. I talked to another source who was approached to be in this series, and he declined. However, they offered this person $8,000 to participate. And this person frankly said, look, I needed the money, but I'm not going to do that. And he turned them down. Well, what was interesting in that is there was no discussion about, well, this $8,000 is for your expenses. Now, if you participated in my show, what expenses would you have? Would you lose some money from your job? Would you have to hire a babysitter? Would you have to buy a plane ticket? There was no discussion of that. It was simply, if you come on our show, The Devil Next Door will pay you $8,000. So, are they paying people? Or are they paying expenses? The listeners can decide. I know what I've decided, but you can make up your own mind. I'm here to give you the facts. So, if these people are being paid, what differentiates them from actors? The bottom line is I'm convinced that they'll say what they want, what they think the A&E producer wants to hear because they want that paycheck. Quite frankly, if they were really interested in their mission, as they call it, the Benjamin Cooper, Chad Cooper, John Huddle, if they're really interested in their mission to expose the word of faith, as they say, why aren't they out here doing this for free? Why are they collecting money from it? Now, I did speak with some other members of the media who, quite frankly, found this very relevant, and I expect some coverage to begin developing on that front. But I'm frankly shocked at the amount of money these people are making on this series, and I think that's very, very relevant when. If you happen to watch this series, you need to keep in mind these people are paid. Bottom line.
And we have a press release. What Josh has shared with you, you can actually read in detail what we found out. Actually, we have a copy of this check as an example for you to even see on our website. You can go to our website and see it firsthand. Our website is wordoffaithfellowship.org. And you will see right at the top there a press release. Josh, would you, before we go, would you just talk a little bit? I know you did some research as to just the ethical issues with documentaries, and I know that you even you wrote this press release, you reference even John Else. He's the director of the documentary program at the University of California at Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism, and could you just reference some of the media thought out there about these people who do documentaries and what they say about paying people on the documentaries?
Well, sure, Mark, and to be clear, I'm certainly not saying that paying people is illegal, but that's not really the point. Right. I'm saying in the context of documentary television filmmaking, paying people is viewed as being unethical. And so Mark was just referencing there's a professor at UC Berkeley, the director of the documentary program there, and he says it's very short and to the point. He says, paying people to talk to you poisons what they tell you. Would you trust a New York Times article if you knew the reporter had paid the subject to talk? So I think that hits the nail straight on the head. Here's what else is interesting, though. I believe that A&E's own internal policies ban paying the participants and subjects of a documentary for their participation, because we know 2 years ago A&E was doing another series on the Ku Klux Klan, and right before that series was to air, the series was called Escaping the KKK. Right before that series was to air, A&E came out in December of 2016 and said, we're canceling this series because we found out the participants got paid. And that violates our internal policies and standards. Now, if it violated those standards then, why doesn't it violate those standards now? Or perhaps A&E has just molded its standards to the time, but quite frankly, if they have, they've cheapened their brand and they've debased their standards. Now, the other thing that that I want to briefly point out is we went to A&E. Right. And so we contacted A&E last week and we said, listen, we have just now got hard proof. I can send you the check that your independent production crew, Collins Avenue, is paying the participants in your documentary. And we spoke to somebody, Michael Feeney, an executive vice president of corporate communications for A&E in New York, and his initial response was, yes, I am very interested in what you have to say. We take I'm paraphrasing, we take our integrity very seriously. Send me what you've got. So, and so we sent him exactly what we told him we had. In the initial phone call, we said, we've got proof that these people were paid. I've got a check. I can show this to you. And he said, I'm very interested in this. Send me what you have. 2 days later on Friday, he shrugs it off and moves on. So what I don't understand is why it was very interesting and relevant to him on Wednesday, and all of a sudden Friday, it's no big deal. So it's pretty clear to me A&E is more interested in ratings than they are integrity.
And Josh, you touched on this earlier, but one of the things that it is really sad is that there is a general thought in the media that if you want to have a story that sells about churches, go negative. Why not? If you're going to do a story about our church, why not cover the 170 plus testimonies that we have shared on this radio program? Why not cover the all of the things that God has really done, the prison ministry and different things? Why not cover the truth about the good that God has done in people's lives and changed people's lives? But it is sad, and we had earlier on this radio program, we had Butch from our church share. Now, Butch was a media consultant for large churches, very large churches, and one of the things that Butch shared with you, if you were listening, was that there is this school of thought out there. If you want to sell a story, if you want to get your name out there, go negative against churches, because there is a certain group of people that like to hear that, and that's sad, but it is a reality. And so, one of the things that we raised in this meeting that we had with this producer was, if you were going to do a story about our church, why not talk about all these good things? Why not start off with meeting with our church? If you're going to do something about a church, meet with them. And why not bring all the good? Well, the reason is because that doesn't sell. And that's where we're at. And so what I wanted to do is just encourage you today to go to our website, because our website specifically addresses the A&E. You'll see right at the top a tab with our press release, and then you can also see so many videos. We have restructured our website recently, so it's very easy for you to access. We have actually broken up our radio program videos so you can actually see certain ones that address the false allegations against our church, and then we have another tab that talks about the powerful testimonies that God has done in our lives. And I just want to bring to your attention, I keep thinking about this passage in the Bible as our church experiences all of these media attacks, and it just seems like it goes on and on and on. I can't help but think about the passage in the Bible in Acts chapter 3 where you have Peter and John. They're going to the temple to pray, and they see this lame man, and they end up coming to him and he asks them for alms, and instead what happens is they pray for him and he recovers. Now what happens after that is interesting, because they Peter and John say, this is Jesus Christ that healed this man. It wasn't us, it was Jesus Christ. And so what happens is the Pharisees and the high priest get involved, and they get very upset at this because it was attributed to Jesus Christ. And Peter and John end up getting brought before the high priest, and they're standing there and they're threatened not to say anything else in the name of Jesus Christ. And you know what their response was? Their response was that they could not stop talking about Jesus Christ and what he was done, and it didn't matter what anybody said to them. They could not help tell of the wonderful things that Jesus is doing. And that's how we feel as a church. You know, we have had so much negative allegations from this specific group. They've even said, we've heard they've said they want to try to shut our doors, but we really can't stop sharing about what God has done, because he has so changed our lives. We are changed forever because of what Jesus Christ has done in our lives. And so really it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter how much the devil rages and tries to come different avenues and tries to say different things. We cannot stop telling you the wonderful things that Jesus Christ has done. And that's something that we will not stop doing, because he has truly changed our lives. And so we do encourage you to go to our website, like I said, and we will be addressing more of these A&E series as they come on. And so I hope that you would continue to listen to us. We do have this program every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're here 8:30 to 9. We will also be bringing more testimonies. We have so many lined up that is so powerful what Jesus has done in our lives. And we love sharing because Jesus gets all the glory for what he has done in our lives. So we thank you for listening. We hope that you will continue to listen to us. Have a great day.